Welcome back to another episode of Ready for Real Estate. I'm your host, Matt Grace. Today's episode will be another good one. Looking forward to it, and we're ready to jump right into it. So, why not we get started? Today, we have on tap Lauren, the host.
Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
We're gearing up for the spring and getting ready to start buying and selling like crazy in the next few weeks.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let me tell you about our guest today.
Oh,
Our
cool.
guest, yes, our guest is Brandon from B&C Real Estate Solutions, and we're looking forward to hearing his story. Hey,
Hello,
Brandon,
hello.
how are you? Welcome to Ready for the Real Estate Podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. I know it's so busy with the day to day work of just being a real estate investor and helping out. I saw on your website how much you do. Also told me you are in the Navy Reserve. So God bless you for serving the country, and I appreciate your time and service. So.
Well, s-
Why don't we jump into your background? How did we get to this point with you? What's
well, yeah, first of all, I appreciate you having me on. It's always a pleasure to connect with like-minded people, and for me, I'm always flattered when people want to hear my story, and if I can add some value by my story or experience, I'm thrilled, and none of that's lost on me. So yeah, the story probably starts back when I was a kid, and I always tell people, your story is so important because you're going to need to dig back into that memory when things get tough, especially in real estate and in different markets. But when I was a kid, we grew up a poor family, originally from Anchorage, Alaska, but my parents had relocated to southern New Mexico, so a little bit of a culture shock. And so I was hearing two different things. I was hearing one thing, and I was seeing another thing put into action, or should I say, put into inaction. Hey son, real estate can give you financial freedom, but we're stuck in the rat race, or we're living paycheck to paycheck trying to make ends meet. And so I guess I had a really great example of a work ethic from my father. My parents were, they were great, grew up in a stable home, but they can never figure out how to get ahead financially. And so that lesson for me was what I didn't want to repeat what they were doing. So fast forward to my right out of high school, I joined the Navy and enlisted in the Navy and sort of got sent all over the world and married my high school sweetheart. So that was a big deal for me. But I found myself in the same position where I was making too little money. We had two young kids at that time, and I was really young in the Navy, making enlisted pay and just struggling. And I thought, man, here it goes. I'm repeating what my parents did. And so I went on a deployment, and I had picked up a book just by happenstance. And this book was about wholesaling houses. And the author claimed he was, in the Tampa Bay area, and he was just wholesaling all these houses using none of his own money. And he was making money hand over fist. And I thought, this has got to be just one of those ruses, right? This is no way this is real. But I became obsessed. I started diving in. And this was so it was probably about 2010 when this happened. I think I was 23 years old. The market had tanked in the Great Recession of 2008. We were getting close to the bottom, and so really it was just fortunate that I ended up reading this book at that time. So I became obsessed with wholesaling and real estate investing, and I just consumed everything I could. I read the Purple Bible, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Mhm.
You know,
He recommended? Yes.
We
incredible.
swear by it.
It was a
Yep.
mindset change for me because I realized that I had some similarities to him. I had a poor dad with this mindset. And I love what he says, about the difference between being poor and being broke. Broke, that's just a temporary financial situation. Being poor is a mindset. And if you allow yourself to settle into that poor mindset, it's very difficult to climb out.
Yeah.
And so I ended up getting into all this education, reading as much as I could. And when I got back from deployment, I told my poor wife, who was so young and had two young babies, I said, I need $200 and I need 2 months and I will wholesale a house. I'll do a wholesale deal. And she's like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what to think of this newfound inspiration, but I don't think we have enough money for diapers. How are we going to buy, pay $200? And I wanted $200 for bandit signs. I was going to stick bandit signs all over the area. We were in Jacksonville, Florida at the time, which was the market unreal in Jacksonville during the Great Recession. I think Florida got hit the hardest out of all 50 states, and you could buy properties on any corner, some of them brand new.
Oh my God.
It was a wild time, and I didn't know sort of what I was getting into.
Yeah. And I grew up with parents that, oh, we should have bought that when we had a chance, or oh, we should have had that. But when you're ready and you know you're ready, you don't have to worry about that. That that won't happen when you're locked and loaded to move forward. But
Yeah. And ultimately, I don't know if I was quite ready for that growth that quickly,
yeah,
but the thing that I could say
Right.
that really moved us along and gave me sort of the courage to continue was connecting with people like you. The first thing I did is I went around Jacksonville and I went to all the networking groups. And back then, they meet in hotels and stuff like that. And I'd go in and I'd find the person who's doing the most deals and be like, hey,
yeah,
you're where I want to be. How did you get there? What did you do? And that really just accelerated. One, I'm a huge introvert, and a lot of people say, "No, you're not." I'm really. You put me in a group full of people, I just want to curl up in a ball in the corner, hide. But it helped me get out of my comfort zone, going to talk to strangers and tell people and say the words. I wanted to hear the words come out of my mouth. I'm a real estate investor. And I make people do that now in my mastermind. Look, you need to call yourself a real estate investor, and you need to tell other people that because your words have power and you're speaking that into an existence. And you're also convincing yourself, which is probably the number one person you need to convince that you are a real estate investor.
I love that speaking that into an existence. I like that. It's putting that mindset, as we've been saying, uh, forward. So that's great. So 101. So many times I've seen guys flame out because they couldn't handle it. Like they got too big. They got beyond what they could do. They went beyond arm's length, and so then they burn out and they had to sell at a discount, and then they had nothing.
Yeah, I think that, the way you scale is by building a team around yourself. I
Yeah.
always say if you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong
Yeah.
room. And so, it's always my goal to surround myself with people who edify me and
Mhm.
who are doing things at a higher level than me. And so that's been huge. And another big thing that has really been something that's kept us people focused is we flip houses, not with BNC Real Estate Solutions. We flip houses, we wholesale houses, and we do rental properties. And
Yeah.
one standard that we set from the very beginning is we will never flip a house and sell a house or even rent a house that we ourselves wouldn't be proud to live in. Because I remember being 20 and broke and thinking, oh my gosh, the only apartment I can afford is an absolute dump. And here I am renting this place from a slumlord who's just
Mhm.
started to get his, really low check. And I just thought, man, I really, if I ever own my own places, I'm going to rent places, houses, apartments, whatever they are that people are proud to live in, even if they're not fancy, right? They don't have to be spectacular to
Mhm.
be well taken care of, clean, thoughtfully maintained. And so that's a standard that we have. And that's helped us, really build great relationships with some of our tenants and even some of our maintenance people are like, man, I've never heard of anybody, spending the extra money to do that. And I'm like, well, it's something I would want done if I was a tenant there. And so we're going to make that happen.
And I noticed that everything you mentioned comes back to community at the end. It comes back to community in this network and having these great people to work with, lean on them, use them. People like to be needed. Lean on them, use that network.
Yeah. I used to be very anti partnership. And I don't know why. I don't think I was never burned in any partnerships or anything like that. But I just kind of had this idea that, well, there's more control and then more security when you run everything. And, my wife's my partner. Obviously, I trust her. But branching outside of that, I was very reluctant to to connect with other people in that way. And I ended up paying for coaching. I'm a big advocate of paying for your education, even yourself. Spend the money. The biggest ROI you will get is on your education.
And you're going to spend the money one way or the other. You're going to spend it on school, or you're going to have an expensive lesson.
Yeah, the mistakes are ridiculously expensive. So yeah, spend it on the front end, right? I mean, might as well. But I ended up paying for some coaching, and it wasn't cheap. It was $10,000 for 6 months and 13 sessions, right? And initially, man, this is definitely the most money I've ever spent, and it seems really high. And then to add on to it, I get into these coaching sessions, and the coach is like, find a partner, find a partner. There's a solution for everything. Find a partner. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is the last thing I want to hear. I don't want to find a partner. Well, fast forward a year later, I have decided to find partners. We've partnered with a ton of people at various levels. And the biggest, I mean, I think the one that has forced the growth the most is with investors. We found investors continually. And I say we found investors really once we got started, and once we started putting it out there, what we were doing and accomplishing, and the value we were adding to the community, and the solutions we were adding to people, investors started seeking me out. Hey, Brandon, I got $1 million I need to spend. Just the other day, I had a phone call. Brandon, I got $1 million I need to spend every year for the next 5 years because I'm paying too much in taxes. I said, man, I'll help you spend your money. We could find a little apartment complex and sweep that up. And so really, once I sort of got that, I don't know what it was, but whatever that chip on my shoulder about partnership was, I got rid of that, and it caused things to really, really begin to grow. And the really funny thing is, the coach that I had hired is now my business partner in Cashflow Academy 101. And so he challenged me, and he was a great coach because he knew what I was lacking, right? He knew my mental limitations, and he pushed me. He said, maybe you should do that. And I said, hey, all these people are contacting me and wanting information. What should I do? Maybe you should start a coaching course. I said, well, you got a coaching course, and I don't know the first thing about coaching courses. You want to partner? He goes, sure, let's partner on this, right? And so I decided to stop resisting that.
Where should people start, and how smart should they be?
I love that question. Really quick, and I don't want to get too far off topic. I use AI pretty heavily. That being said, I am a firm believer that they will take over humanity and kill us all. And so I'm just going to use them as best as I can until then.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But no, I think if it's someone who's very, very first starting, I would say identify your self-doubt. That might sound weird, right? It sounds kind of glass half fullish, but identify your own self-doubt and your own insecurity and begin to tell yourself the opposite. The big one I hear from a lot of people, especially people who want to get in, they've got themselves to this point where they want to be a real estate investor for whatever reason, whether it's lifestyle, time, freedom, get away from their W-2 that they hate. I don't even, whatever the reason. But I hear a lot of the same thing. I don't have the money. I can't get in. I don't have the money. And I say, listen, if you tell yourself that money is the limiting factor to preventing you from meeting your goals, you are right. You are going to limit yourself in that regard. If you tell yourself that there's more money out there, there's a ridiculous amount of money out there, then money will start to come to you. And I'll give you one quick example, which is I went to coffee the other day with my old sergeant. This guy, all he cares about, he's an old crusty cop, retired now, and 38 years, way too long being a cop, but he's cynical and crusty. Super, super great guy, but hates the world, right? I had coffee with him, and then I had coffee with another friend who is now getting into real estate investing. And the new investor, his name's Bobby. And Bobby goes, I really want to get in. I just can't think about how to make any money. Well, just a moment before that in the conversation, the other gentleman was saying, my house is almost paid off. I have $500,000 in equity in my house. And I said, what do you mean, Bobby? You don't have any money? Chad just said he has $500,000 in equity in his house. He's going to be losing that to inflation, not to mention he's paying taxes on it every year. It's a liability to him unless he can use that and give it to you. He could lend it to you for 12%. He can make the money. You could invest in the project you want. There you go. Deal done. Problem solved, right? And so my point is, if you think that money is the limiting factor, you're probably right. If you think that your ability to talk to other people or speak in public is the limiting factor, you're definitely right. There's just all of these ways we talk ourselves out of it. And so I'd say start with your insecurities. The second thing I'd say, get educated. The thing that sets you apart from Joe Schmo next to you is your willingness and sold out dedication.
I know that. Yes. And that's a great point. We mentioned flack in the beginning part. How do you stay that focus, that tunnel vision, that pillar of this is where I'm at, this is where I want to be, these are my strengths. And so that's such a great answer. Thank you. Brandon, great question. Where can people come to get contact you and get started on your program?
Yeah. So I have provided my email. So I don't know if there's if you could drop it in the chat or provide it to your
Yeah,
listeners.
we'll include that in the show notes.
Yeah.
I love connecting with people. If I can add value to you in any way, please have people reach out to me. You could direct them to my website, which is www.bcrealestatesolutions.com. That's where we talk about what we do as a company, as a real estate holding company. Educational website is Cashflow Academy. People are welcome to go on there, see what we offer. If it's something that fits you or something you're interested in, you can schedule a conference call with me on there. I call it a strategy call, because my thing is, I am not trying to sell you something that's not going to benefit you. My goal is to add value to you. And if you're not a good fit for that, I'm probably going to say, hey, watch the video, the course videos, and fill in your education before you bite off on something bigger. And so I'm always open to reach out with people. I'm open to network with people. I'm pretty much an open book. Like I said, I don't really think about this as competition. I think about this as synergy. The more we can help each other and build each other up, the more profitable and abundant all of our lives are going to be. And so, yeah, please put all that information so that your listeners and your viewers can see that. Also, if anybody is interested in what we provide with Cashflow Academy, they want to get some education, they want to join a mastermind, which I call group mentoring. We get people in, we get the big brains. We want to get the smarter people into the room, smarter than me. I want people who are doing this at a higher level. Those are the people we're bringing in to add value. If someone's interested in that, if they tell me they're a viewer of Ready for Real Estate, we'll give them a 10% discount just for saying that. So,
Wow, that's great. Thank you.
That's very generous. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
absolutely.
So in that vein, of course we have you as a resource, but I'm wondering if any of our listeners do want to continue their education, is there anything that you would recommend that they check out? We have Rich Dad Poor Dad. Absolutely. I think everybody swears by it. It's I would think it's a prerequisite to getting your real estate license, frankly. But are there any accessible resources that you have found to be particularly helpful? Any like YouTube channels, any particular books, any courses, podcasts? Is there anything that's stuck out to you?
There's so many resources out there, and that I think that makes it hard for some people, right? Because and that was part of the reason I started Cashflow Academy, because I was like, there's just too much out there.
You start.
People are struggling to figure out what's real and what's not. But I
Mhm.
think Bigger Pockets is a huge resource. I love Bigger Pockets. The podcast is amazing. There's another podcast that my business partner started, Eric Nelson. It's called A Real Estate Mindset. And I just love the idea. He's not focusing on the numbers. He's focusing on getting your mind right, which I think a lot of people, they jump in too quick, or maybe they get analysis paralysis and never jump in at all. If your mindset's not sharp, then that's a big thing. There are tons of books out there, though. Rich Dad Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. I mean, there's just so many great resources. And I think that you have to find what works for you is probably my big thing. I've watched YouTube channels and I've been like, this guy just does not resonate with me. And that's probably, I always say, like, to somebody, we're all weird, right? Somebody out there is like, yeah, Brandon Hollibaugh is kind of a weird guy. And so you got to find someone who kind of fits your mold. But I think as long as you're pursuing that education, you're on the right track. Get on Bigger Pockets. Start listening to podcasts. Start from episode 1. I mean, I don't remember how many episodes there are now. I think they're in like 800s or something ridiculous like that. That's a lot of time. But instead of just flipping on social media and filling your mind with senseless nonsense, get put on the podcast. Fill your mind with something that's going to give you a new skill or give you the competitive edge.
Or even make your social media work for you. Find local groups, find investor groups. If you're glued to Facebook, find something on Facebook that works. If you're always on Instagram, you're always scrolling reels, anything like that, find an investor that has good content, that has great applicable content. If you're already there, take advantage of the time. And then we all know those algorithms are just, they're dying to feed you whatever it is that you want. So before you know it, we're probably going to set off everybody's phones that when they go check their feeds later, it's going to be everybody's ads. Yeah, make those places work for you too.
That's such a great attitude. I was off social media for years because in the military, I ended up going through this program where I couldn't have social media. So they're like, no, you can't have it, delete it all. And I liked it. And my personality, I was
Me
like, yeah,
too.
I'm not missing anything. Yeah, all my social media, right? Facebook, I'm dating myself. But ultimately I got back on and I realized what a powerful tool it can be when it comes to networking, getting the word out there, just showing people what you're doing. And I was very resistant. I was like, I don't want to post the before and after of these flips. No one cares. Everybody's flipping houses. But as soon as I started doing that, I started getting that such positive feedback from people, and people were so supportive. And that social media can really be a powerful tool for good, and a powerful tool for sucking the time out of your day too, right? If you're not careful. But you're right, Lauren. If you start focusing on all the good people you like to follow, I follow Pace Morby, Gary Norton, somebody Tarek Al Musna. Some of these people who are doing this at a high level, and then I see their stuff, and every now and then I'm like, man, what an incredible idea! How did I not think about that? It's such a clever thing. And so it's a really great opportunity to kind of fill your social feed with some really quality content.
Exactly. And fill it up with your own too. Cause I mean, think about it. If you're trying to sell a property or you're trying to sell your own business, anything, when you meet somebody, what's the first thing you do? You Google them. If nothing's going to come up and you can't find them and you can't do that research, there's nothing to see. How do you know you want to work with that builder? How do you know what their work is going to look like? How do you get those reviews?
Totally. Yeah. And I added my personal, I have a business, social media handle, but it's more, it's very like linear business focused. I always add my personal one. I love connecting, and I want people to know I'm a real human being. I'm not just some, big business who's buying up all this real estate, right? And I'm a person. And so that's why I always add my personal social media. I love to connect with people and hear new ideas, and love to have contacts in New Jersey and Philadelphia and all over the place.
You got them through us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got you covered.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. No problem. So, and just your going back to your one story about being that all encompassing person, you become someone's go to person for everything outside of real estate. The
Yeah.
other day, my neighbor knocked on my door, wanted me to look at her car, and I am not mechanical. They know that you get things done, and it's the process that you live off of that you follow things through it, and you must have a lot of people. One because of your background of mission first and all the way through that you see things all the way through, and that's huge. And so lots of times, even in this area, you can't get a good contractor because they leave on you. Everyone, it's like one big giant. I'm losing my thought there. They're paying Paul. They're using one to pay for the next, and so you'll see them until lunchtime, and then they pick up and they leave. So they're only working on your project like 4 hours a day, and maybe 12 hours a week. Yeah.
I had that happen to me leaving, and I had a contractor I hired to replace the front door of a duplex that I own. And I drove by, and the door's there with the tape over the lock. And he just left it like that. And so I'm like, now I'm looking at it, and it's like, so my building is unsecured. Where are you?
Uh-huh.
What's going on? Like, I don't have time to sit here and babysit. It's not, it's so hard to find reputable professionals. So definitely having somebody in your pocket and being that resource, because we work with them all the time. Like, we're always calling contractors, we're always calling somebody. And even if we don't have someone, to have someone like you, Brandon, in our back pocket to be able to have someone who has that network as well to be able to leverage is so invaluable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good to be able to say, I know a guy who knows a guy. There's
Right?
always that
Exactly.
will solve your problems.
I have a shirt around here that says I know a guy on it. So
Mhm.
it's just yeah. But
That's
that's
perfect.
great. Thank you, Brandon. And Lauren, do you have anything else for Brandon?
No, just thank you so much for coming on. This has been absolutely amazing. I know I'm certainly going to check out a bunch of the resources that you mentioned, and I really hope our listeners do too. But we will most certainly be in touch. This is definitely a conversation we want to continue.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you guys having me on. Like I said, uh, I'm always surprised and flattered when people care about the story and want to hear it. And as long as I can add value and help somebody, I'm excited. So thank you for having me on. I appreciate you both.
It's our
Thank you,
pleasure.
Brandon. Yeah. I love that you made the story human and connected. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, that's it today, folks. That's our episode with Brandon from B&C Real Estate Solutions and also the founder of Cashflow Academy 101. Feel free to reach out to Brandon with any sort of real estate needs and any questions that you have. Feel free to reach out to Lauren or myself here at Ready for Real Estate Podcast. This is Matt, and this is our podcast. Have a great day. See you on the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.